ruled that data contained in the hard drives may be used in the commission. Justice Zondo made the ruling a short while ago at the inquiry in Parktown in Johannesburg. An application was brought forward by the commission's legal team asking the judge to allow it to submit hard drives as evidence. The hard drives obtained by two whistleblowers contained emails and communication between the Guptas and representatives of government and state-owned enterprises. For more on the story, we're going live to Parktown. Mzwandile Mbeje is standing by for us there. Mr. Mbeje, just give us a wrap-up of developments this morning. Mzwandile Mbeje, are you able to hear us?
Well, yes, I can hear you.
Mr. Mbeje, give us a wrap-up of what happened this morning.
I hope you can hear me now.
Right.
I hope you can hear me now.
We do want to have that conversation, so we're going to keep trying. Mzwandile Mbeje, are you able to hear us? Give us a wrap-up of what happened this morning.
Thank you very much, Desiree. I can hear you loud and clear. And of course, the proceedings here at Parktown have just adjourned. And remember, what we were doing today was that there was that application which had been brought by the legal commission, which they wanted the data, some of those hard drives, to be admitted as part of evidence. But of course, this being the commission, so the issue of whether are they not using the legalistic language that is normally used in courts. So earlier on, so they had to really clarify so how they should put it. They don't necessarily need to go the court way in terms of the language. So it was then agreed between the commission and, of course, the judge that maybe they should use the language really that is acceptable to the commission and, of course, looking at what the rules of these commissions are saying. And, of course, what ended up happening was that the judge then received those hard drives, saying they can be used as part of the evidence in this commission. So this is very, very key, remember, because given some of the laws, or rather the rules in our country, some people could easily object to this for various reasons. When these Gupta leaks emerged some time ago, other people had characterized them as fake, but now that they are being used here, they are being accepted as authentic, so it means so now they will be able to then use them as part of evidence. But perhaps what is more interesting, Desiree, is that the hawks who wanted to follow this up in terms of investigation did not have any of that kind of information available to them. Though the judge made it clear that only the people in the commission can have this data. But the judge made a provision to say any person outside of the commission who wants access to these hard drives must seek leave from this commission. So I think that gave really a window of opportunity for the hawks perhaps to approach the commission to seek certain information as they want to pursue this case. So that is that's quite huge as the commission concludes its work here today.
It is really important because for most of the morning, that's what they were grappling with, even yesterday, making sure that the processes at the inquiry don't cross into looking like or becoming a trial.
Absolutely. This is not a court of law, but of course some of the information that will be obtained from here and some of the recommendations, it's very, very likely that there could be recommendations perhaps for criminal prosecutions because we here talking about very serious issues of the state capture where people are alleged really to have done wrong things. And once the commission really is able to come to finality in terms of what was happening, it will really be able, using this available information, to then recommend appropriately. Desiree.
Mzondile, a big portion of the contents of the hard drives is already public knowledge. What are your thoughts in terms of the strength of that data in proving conclusively that there was state capture?
I would not necessarily say some of the big portion. Remember, here we are talking about 300,000 worth of information. So a lot of studying of that data still needs to be done. So people still need to sit down and peruse it and study it. And really from there, they should be able then to come up with perhaps proper recommendations in terms of what to do next. But of course, the kind of information that is already in the public space really is quite serious, and then I think they would also use that as the basis to pursue whatever they want to. Particularly, as we have said, Desiree, we know that the investigating team of the Hawks would probably want to use this opportunity that perhaps this commission is presenting to be able to really to pursue these cases. So they were not able. So when they were first reported, so they did want to follow it, but they couldn't because they had nothing. Now that we know about the existence of these hard drives, and we know who is in possession of them, and we know how to go about if you want to have access to them. So really does give really an opportunity for those who really want to pursue this to do so. And I think so that's what perhaps is going to happen. But perhaps besides that, this might really make the work of the commission really I wouldn't say simple, but it will really amplify the work of this commission. Because you must always remember, Desiree, that the reason why this commission exists is to really probe whether there were outside influences into the appointment of the executive or cabinet ministers, or was there any wrongdoing? Were there individuals really who held sway over let's say, the president? So we those are the things really. Yes. Those are the things really that will really be amplified as time goes on. So this commission has adjourned for today, and then it will resume on the 3rd with the finance minister, Minister Nene, really giving his testimony. But should there be anyone perhaps who wants to do that before the 3rd, the commission said they will make that information available to the public, and then they are ready to commence even before the 3rd.
Speaking of that, Mzwai, at the beginning of the specific testimony, the judge made it clear that Sahara Pty Ltd was welcome to approach the inquiry to come and either confirm the authenticity of the data on the hard drive. Do we know at all if there are any efforts to approach the inquiry by Sahara or its authorities?
At this stage, we haven't had anything. And it's very important, Desiree, to really perhaps understand why the judge would say something like that. Because, as we have said earlier, that there was some people, particularly some of the Gupta people, saying those leaks that were in public were fake. And remember, all this kind of information was obtained from the Sahara computers. That is the property of the Guptas. So if perhaps they feel that there are things that are not true, this commission is open to them. But given what they did last week in terms of saying they are not comfortable coming to South Africa, so I don't know, they'll probably do the sworn statements. I doubt that we'll see them appear in person. They had an opportunity to do that, to question, to cross-examine people who have actually accused them of wrongdoing, someone like SABC Jonas and Fikimento and Themba Maseko. but they said because they really don't have faith in the law enforcement agencies of the country, they will not come back and subject them to what they called the incompetent hawks. So I think if they do make something, or if they do want to respond, they probably will send the statements. But as matters stand, so nothing has happened so far.
A lot of media interest in the story. You have media colleagues in that room with you. What kind of conversations have been held about the significance of this development in relation to investigative journalism?
Remember the Gupta leaks, I think when they first appeared in those Sunday newspapers, and everyone really wanted to know their origin and so who did what. And of course, as much as this story would need a lot of investigation, but in most cases, you get really handed this kind of information, as we heard from the witness yesterday, Brian Curran. So basically saying, so after he had got these hard drives, they then said and identified the journalists who could perhaps assist in publishing this. Because in his own words, he said they were not really comfortable in taking this matter to the authorities, whether the political leadership or the law enforcement agencies. But given the seriousness of what was contained in those hard drives, they felt they needed a way really to make this public. That's why they then approached those journalists. But interestingly, it was not necessarily those who were approached first who broke the story. As you heard, that they had planned perhaps to make this known around September last year. But of course, the Sunday Times, and I think to some extent the City Press, broke the story on the 28th of May, basically scattering some of those plans they had in terms of how and when to release these documents.
Mzwai, thank you so much for that wrap-up of events at the State Capture inquiry in Parktown.
Okay, let's